Alright, so today I'm going to show you guys how to make the fortune cookies. A few things you're going to need. You're definitely going to need a bowl of clay, probably about a golf-sized ball of clay for each fortune cookie. And you just want to make sure that it's rolled into a ball, nice and smooth. Remember, as we've done with everything, the smoother the ball is and the surfaces of the clay before you start working with it, the nicer your piece will be in the end. So about a golf-sized ball of clay, maybe a little bit bigger. You're going to need slip and your scoring tool. You're also going to want a paintbrush or something to smooth the surface with. You may want a bamboo skewer. One, it has a point on the end of it, which might help you cut if you don't have a cookie cutter. Two, it might help you to shape it. I figured out a way to shape it with my fingers. I think is a little bit easier, but I'm going to show you both ways. If you can't find a cookie cutter, and this one, I'm actually going to switch. This one's about 3.5 inches big. You want to find something that's similar in size. So I found this lid to a cream cheese container that's a similar size, and I can use it to trace out a circle, or I can use a cookie cutter. Don't take a cookie cutter from your cabinet though, because your parents might get mad at you. So find something else that you can use that's a similar size. All you have to do is measure from one side to the other, and you're looking for something that's about 3.5 or 4 inches. Don't go smaller, it just makes things a little bit more frustrating for you. And also when we go to fire them, they're going to shrink in size, so a little bit bigger isn't necessarily that bad. All right, let's get started. Oh, wait, one more thing. I have this rolling pin. I'm going to show you how to use a rolling pin or how to use your hand if you don't have one. This rolling pin I took from my kid's block set. Don't tell him. But I took it so that you guys could just get ideas about thinking about different things that you could take or different places that you could take from to find something similar to a rolling pin. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my clay is nice and smooth in a ball shape. All right, so the first way that I'm going to show you is without a rolling pin, just by using your hands, and then I'll show you also how to use the rolling pin because it is a little bit more than just rolling back and forth. All right, so I have this ball, and I'm just going to start by pounding down on the top of it. Once it gets to a big enough size, I can start to throw it out as opposed to pounding on it. You could continue to do this. For me, it's just a little too noisy. So what I do is I take the clay, I put it in the palm of my hand, and I'm just going to throw it towards the board to sort of stretch it out. The important thing with doing this method is to keep rotating it so that you're stretching it in all directions and not just one direction. You want this little slab of clay to be pretty thin. So I'm just going to keep throwing it until it feels really thin. I especially, if that happens, it's okay. Just put it down and pound it out with your hand. I especially like it to be a little bit thinner towards the edges and a little thicker towards the middle. And you'll see why when we go to put it together. All right, so that would be if you are throwing out the piece of clay. If you decide, or if you are able to find a rolling pin, again, you're going to start with a nice smooth ball of clay, about a golf ball size, about the size of a golf ball. And again, I start by kind of pounding it out lightly just to flatten it. Then I'm going to take my rolling pin and I roll over it and I keep flipping it. When I roll, I try to avoid rolling all the way to the edges because it tends to make it too thin. Although in this project it's not that bad. So just like when you threw it out with your palm, keep rotating it so that you make it into a circle and not just really long in one direction. So I keep picking it up and rotating it. If I did not pick it up, what would happen, especially I'm working on a pretty good surface that releases clay, but if you're not, your clay will get really stuck and you'll get frustrated. This is the kind of project that's really simple, but it might take you 1 or 2 tries to kind of get it down and figure out what works best for you. So again, I'm going with clay that's a little on the thinner side. So just to give you an idea how thin, it's pretty thin. happy with how thick or how thin it is, then I can put on my template, and I'm going to use my bamboo skewer to just cut around, but you can use whatever you can find at home to cut around with. I personally feel like something like a nail or something that just has a point on the end works much better than something like a knife. It's a little bit easier to maneuver than something that is more shaped like a knife. Alright, so I'm just going to pick this up. And my edges are a little messy, so I'm just going to go around and smooth them. So I'm just taking my finger and I'm just going along the edges, and once I'm happy with how the front part looks, then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same thing to the back. And I apologize, I'm doing laundry, so you probably hear my dryer. Not only am I doing laundry, but I am doing like snowsuits, so they're pretty noisy. Alright, so I'm just going to keep smoothing around the back. I'm going to pick the prettier side to be the outside. From here, I'm going to fold the clay together to make the cookie. So I'm just going to take my scoring tool and a little slip, and I'm just going to score a little at the top of here and score a little down here with some slip. And I'm just going to fold them together. I'm going to pick it up and press. So it looks kind of like a taco. All right, so from here you have some options. I've found you could use something like the bamboo skewer to help you fold it, but I actually found that putting my fingers on the edges, so I have my thumb and my pointer finger on the edges, and I'm just going to take the pointer finger on my other hand, and I'm just going to press up with it. Now, what might happen is your clay might start to crack, and that's okay because you're going to clean it up, and that's where the longer part of this process sort of happens, is in the cleanup. So that looks a little funny, so I'm just going to reach my fingers on the inside and sort of try and change that shape to make it look a little bit more like a fortune cookie. You want to make sure that you maintain this opening on the inside so that we're able to stick the fortunes in them once they're fired. So remember, clay shrinks, so we don't want to leave it too small because then we're going to struggle. So make sure after you bend, you go back in with your finger and kind of push it out a little bit. All right, from here, I'm going to take my paintbrush, and I can either use slip or water, both work, and I'm just going to paint over all the little cracks. If you don't have a paintbrush, you can use a sponge, you can use a Q-tip, look for any, you can even use your fingertips. So if you put some slip on your finger and just sort of, that's probably a little too much slip for my finger, and just keep painting around until you get rid of all those little ugly cracks. All right. I'm gonna call it the end for this, but if this were truly my piece that I was to hand in, I would go around and make sure that all the edges are smooth. We don't want anything to be sharp or pointy or cracked. We're not gonna put glaze on these, we're just gonna add a stain to them. So we wanna make sure that they're nice and smooth, so that way there's no rough spots for anybody to get, I don't want to really say hurt with, but like, you know, that just don't feel nice and could scratch somebody, even if it's not that big of a scratch. All right, so you're just gonna make sure that it's folded over, and there you have it. There's your fortune cookie. All right, you're responsible for making 5 of those, nice and smooth. If you want to make more, that's completely fine. At this moment in time, my thought process is that I'm just going to give you back 5 of them, not necessarily yours. if you do something, I know a student had mentioned about wanting to turn this area into looking like a rainbow. If you want to do something like that, then make sure that your initials are on there and the period number that I have you, so that they're easy for me to identify and be able to get them back to you. Right now I have about between 130 150 students, handing in about 5 of them, so you guys can do the math, but right off the jump, that's a lot. So make sure that if you want your specific ones back, that you put your initials and the period number on there, and then possibly remind me when it comes time to getting them back. All right, happy fortune cookie making, guys. All right, one thing that I forgot to mention is you want them to dry out. They don't have to dry out really slow. There's not a lot of attachments, but we did attach this area up here. So just wait for my dryer to finish. One thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you loosely wrap them in plastic, just so that they dry out a little bit slower. So I would put all my little cookies that I made, and then just wrap them in some plastic for a week, uncover them after that, and then you're good to go. You can bring them in. Again, when you bring stuff in, it's much better for you to bring them in still in a wet stage than in a completely bone dry stage. These are probably a lot less fragile than most things that we're going to make in this class. It's probably not as important, but if you don't want to risk your pieces breaking, then I would definitely make sure to wrap them up in plastic and then bring them to me still in somewhat of a wet stage. You don't want them to be so wet that they can change their shape, so you want them to set up a little bit so that they are leather hard and they're able to maintain their shape, but not so dry that they snap if you were to break them. All right,